Welcome to this month in Linux gaming, where we go over some of the latest Linux gaming news. Either it be things like the new Steam gaming overlay being available now on the Steam client on Linux, or it be the lossless scaling that now is introduced into Linux, or it be things to do with like controller support, handhelds, whatever it may be. I would class that as gaming Linux news. So let's just get right into it. Before this video starts also, please, if you like this video and you enjoy watching the videos on the channel, I would definitely subscribe to the channel and like the video. And to start it off, like I said in the intro of this video, the first one is about the new overlay that Steam introduced. Originally, when this overlay was introduced, it wasn't supported on Linux in the beta client of Steam. But as you can see, with one of the newest Steam beta client releases on July 17th, they enabled the extra features that the overlay has, which those extra features were to see the GPU, the CPU, and a couple other little features which I'll show very soon. But yeah, they added support for it for AMD and NVIDIA GPUs. Sadly, no Intel GPU support, so maybe that will come in the future when it comes to the Linux support for this, but for right now, it is only for those GPUs. And if you want to know how to enable this is pretty damn easy. We go into the Steam settings and we go to the in-game options. That, as you can see, there is some options that we can enable or disable for the new FPS overlay. And the new ones is in the performance detail level, they now have CPU and GPU utilization and RAM. This wasn't here before. I just liked the latest one, but now, as we can see, there's a RAM one that we can choose. So that's new and that's really awesome. That just brings more compatibility to this FPS overlay. And you can also do like the FPS average mean graph. You can show the CPU utilization per core graph and the text scaling, the contrast saturation, and the background opacity. And of course, the usual like how to toggle the performance overlay on and off. Now, sadly, this doesn't work if you have the Wayland driver enabled within Proton. So if you're using GE Proton and you have that enabled, this FPS overlay will not work yet. And my theory is that when Steam enables Wayland support for the client, all the other things will work. They should work like the FPS overlay should work under the Wayland driver when that is enabled. And as we can see here, we are now in Elden Ring, and as you can see also, the FPS overlay is enabled, and we can see the FPS, we can see the frame timing, we can see the CPU, the GPU, the speed of which the CPU is going as well, and the RAM usage, and then also some extra usage statistics when it comes to the GPU, like the VRAM, the temperature, and the utilization, of course. So I would say this overlay is really good if you're someone who doesn't want to use the Mango HUD FPS overlay on Linux, just wants to enable something in Steam easily, and then that's it. It just works out of the box and like every single game that's running under X Wayland or X11, and you'll have no real big issues, I would say. If you are on Intel though, you are not going to be able to see the GPU usage. That's the only bad thing. But hopefully Steam does add that at some point. Now, one of the very big things that happened this month, which was very unexpected, I would say, and so many people have asked for this over the past, I would say, year or two on this channel specifically. There's been just so many comments of people just asking for this, and that is lossless scaling frame generation on Linux. When it comes to this feature that people want, it didn't seem like anyone really wanted to step up to the challenge and actually try and do it, even though I think we all knew that it was possible, but it's just someone needed to actually try and make it possible so that we can actually use it and do bug reporting and all that. And as we can see here, there is an official repository for the lossless scaling frame generation. This is a port basically where they try to translate the lossless scaling frame generation that happens on the lossless scaling application under Proton. So you need to own lossless scaling on Steam for this to work. Now, for right now, it is very experimental, and that's what I was saying with like bug reporting. There's going to be a lot of bugs that are going to be in this, and I've already seen a lot of bugs with people trying to use it. Games either not working, or the way the lossless scaling and frame generation is not working correctly, or just some other little things. This will take a while, I would say, to it mature to a point where someone can actually just install it and then use it. And then when it comes to the GUI side of things, there was a GUI that I did find that was posted on GitHub, and it has a simple where you can create different profiles and change the multiplier of the frame generation, the flow scale, performance mode, and then also things like HDR mode, etc. So I would say within the next year or so, this will mature and you'll be able to probably use it without any real big issues. And of course, if you enjoy using this project, I'd highly recommend donating to the developer, as there does seem to be around 5 contributors right now, but this developer, Pancake, seems to be the one that is doing the majority of commits, trying to get this to work properly. So I'd highly recommend going to the Ko-fi link and giving them a donation so that they can continue, be more motivated to work on this project so that it can improve. Now, when it comes to the REDV driver in Mesa, whatever you want to call it, there's been lots of improvements when it comes to the ray tracing performance, FSR4 performance, and overall the RDNA 3 and 4 GPUs. Just stability and performance improvements all around. There is a lot of that happening with Mesa 25.2 that is coming out next month. And when it comes to Mesa 25.3, there's some early patches also. So the first one is the emulated ray tracing. If you do try to use this, there is a 40% improvement with Quake 2 RTX, which is in Mesa 25.3 development cycle. So if you want to use these patches, you're probably going to have to use the Mesa Git version to try them out. And emulated ray tracing is not real ray tracing that's happening necessarily on the hardware. It's basically a fake ray tracing that's trying to be done. So not actually trying to use the GPU hardware to do ray tracing that actually supports ray tracing. And when it comes to the ray tracing performance improvements with RDNA 4 and maybe RDNA 3, we can see that there has been some benchmarks done by Michael, and you can see the difference between the default on Ubuntu versus the Mesa 25.2 D-level version, and there is some major performance improvements. So that's really awesome to see. Like in Vulkan ray tracing with Gravity Mark, we can see a huge difference here. Same goes in ray tracing in Vulkan R8. There is a decent improvement with that one also. Then when it comes to the FSR4 improvements, there is some that are arriving. Like with the recent patch here, open yesterday, was a merge request, GFX 11 8-bit CMAT loading optimizations for helping some FSR4 shaders, though that code has yet to be merged. Another one is this ACO optimization for FSR4 too. And then if we scroll back up here, we can see hitting Mesa Git this morning were yet another round of FSR4 optimizations. This merge request optimized GFX 11 matrix use conversions for benefiting AMD RDNA 3 class GPUs. No performance numbers were noted there on the end user benefits. So at least when it comes to FSR4, this is being improved upon, which is really awesome to see. And then the next one is we have the rounds of Proton custom runner releases. And right now, it seems like all the Proton custom runners like GE Proton, Proton EM, either Proton Cache OS, and many others are all focusing on either it be the DLSS upgrade environment variable, or the most fixes that are being pushed out is a lot of Wayland improvements. Ever since I made my Wayland tutorial video, these runners have been updated to improve it even further. And then you have the usual Proton fixes that have been added to certain games. And then also when it comes to Proton experimental bleeding edge, things like GE Proton, adding that in, just making the experience a little bit better. And with GE Proton on the latest one, they did enable the NT-Sync synchronization driver by default. So if you do use GE Proton, you're going to be using the NT-Sync instead of F-Sync. Which, if you don't know what NT-Sync is, it's basically the synchronization or translation between Windows APIs within Wine. And NT-Sync is a more standard or standardization with how that translation works versus something like F-Sync, which has a lot of hacks and workarounds for some of the things that it can't implement because it either doesn't have access to kernel level or some other things that it simply doesn't have access to. So NT-Sync did solve that, and with that, like I said, GE Proton has enabled this by default. And I do have a video coming out very soon of some of the tests that I've done with the NT-Sync driver versus F-Sync today. And of course, just to let people know, already, NT-Sync is better than F-Sync in the majority of cases, and when it comes to it just being a better standard for the majority of things, this creates just a standard instead of having to rely on hacks and workarounds. And for people who are interested in enabling the Wayland driver, there is an updated environment variable that you can use to easily enable it in a game if you are using any of these custom Proton runners. So one of the good things about using these new environment variables is you no longer have to specify your main monitor. It now has a way of determining what is your main monitor. And if it doesn't work properly, you launch a game and it doesn't launch on the right monitor, I would check the in-game settings just to make sure that it's selected on the right monitor. Because I did have that situation with Halo Infinite. It launched on my left monitor here instead of my main one, and I just had to change the in-game settings to the main monitor that I do use. So as you can see, this is the new environment variable. It is just simply proton underscore add underscore config equals Wayland space percent command percent, and that's literally it. NT-Sync is used by default, so you don't need that, and Wayland just to force Wayland, and then you don't have to specify the main monitor anymore. So it's really simple now, I would say, when it comes to using the Wayland driver if you want to test those things out. And of course, we did get another DXVK release, 2.7, and there is some notable changes here for when it comes to the GPU side of things. Like when it comes to the driver support, the Vulkan extension VKKHR maintenance 5 is now required. DXVK has been relying on guarantees made by this extension since 2.5, so in order to remove some maintenance burden, fallbacks that would allow older drivers to run were now removed. So you people who have maybe are using older drivers on older graphics cards might start to find more issues when trying to use DXVK. And it does say here that these changes primarily affect Windows users on AMD Polaris and Vega GPUs, for which AMD has effectively discontinued driver support. On Linux, these older GPUs will keep working on RATV when using Mesa 25.0 or newer. So I guess that's a win when it comes to the Linux support for those GPUs. If you do own any of those GPUs, I would highly recommend that you use Linux instead of Windows for playing games, because DXVK and RATV and Mesa have better support than Windows does. And then it says here, due to a growing number of compatibility issues with the AMD Windows driver in general, supporting it is no longer a priority. So if you do rely on DXVK on Windows, on those GPUs, or maybe really any AMD graphics card on Windows, you might start to experience maybe more issues when trying to use DXVK. And there is the binding model changes. Descriptive management was largely rewritten and modernized. On a new AMD and NVIDIA cards, VK-EXD descriptor buffer is now used by default, which significantly reduces CPU overhead compared to the legacy binding model and may thus improve CPU-bound performance in games such as Final Fantasy, I don't know how to say that number, God of War, Metaphor, and then Watch Dogs 2 and others. This feature remains disabled on older GPUs due to the severe performance regressions in some cases, specifically on NVIDIA Pascal or older, as well as AMD RDNA 2 or older when using AMD VLK or the AMD Windows driver. RADV users are unaffected by these issues. And then it also does say here that it's strongly recommended that you do enable resizable bar for your GPU. And you can do that within the BIOS. That's the only way that you're able to enable that feature. And it's always highly recommended that you do that. Then when it comes to memory management, memory defragmentation is now enabled by default on Intel Battle Mage and Lunar Lake GPUs. On older Intel GPUs, this feature remains disabled as it may cause rendering issues for unknown reasons. And you can see the issue if you want to look into that further. On discrete GPUs, DXVK will now enforce the driver-reported VRAM budget as much as possible and dynamically evict unused resources to system memory when under memory pressure. This should improve performance in many Unity engine titles on VRAM-constrained systems and may allow for higher texture quality settings to be used in some games. Temporary slowdowns and stutters are still expected when exceeding VRAM capacity. So really good when it comes to memory management as well. Big improvements, I would say. And then it also does say here that this memory management feature may not work currently as intended because of some kernel driver issues with the AMD GPU driver. So if you have an AMD GPU like me and many others, you may not work as intended. And then we have some legacy feature cruft being removed, just making DXVK more focused when it comes to what to maintain and develop new features for. And the last thing I would say for the improvements and bug fixes is to do with some games getting some fixes right here. So if you see any games that you like in this list, well, now you should have a better time when it comes to playing them, either because they are playable now or there's some bug fixes to them. And with that, a new Heroic Games launcher has released today. And with that, we have some interesting changes that are also mostly good, I would say. One is to prioritize the GE Proton versions and add a setting to show/hide non-GE versions on the wine list. So if you go to download a runner, it's not going to try and it's going to hide those non-GE versions on the wine list, and then it's also going to prioritize GE Proton versions. Then it says here, several improvements to the joystick and keyboard navigation, adds a new option to launch games with or without logs from the game page. Also from macOS, they've added wine staging back to Wine Manager and fixed an issue with picking up the wrong wine binary when using the GPTK. I don't really know what that means because I'm not a macOS user, but if you are a macOS user, well, there you go, there's some fixes for that. And just a note here, with the Heroic Games new 2.18 release, there is an important move on this version is that the Flatpak is being reverted to the runtime 23.08 due to issues with gamepad input on Steam Deck gaming mode. If you need runtime 24.08 for HDR or better Wayland support, install Heroic from the beta branch on FlatHub, which is rather easy to do. You can literally just search up FlatHub beta repo install, and there'll be a link that I'll also leave in the description that you can install the beta FlatHub repo, so you can install that newer runtime for Heroic if you want to use those features like HDR or better Wayland support. And as you can see here, there is a very, very long changelog, I would say, of fixes and some new things. One notably is adding a setting to enable Wine Wayland and HDR. So if you want to easily enable Wine Wayland and HDR outside of Steam in Heroic, well, it's really easy to do that. And when it comes to app loading, that has been improved when running Linux under Wayland with Heroic. It's now just that bit more faster. Now, if you don't know, NVIDIA did release their GeForce Now application on the Steam Deck as a native application instead of running it under a browser or something like Electron, which is also running basically in Chromium. The problem with that though is it only runs on the Steam Deck, and there's weird workarounds for trying to get it working, but there is a new application that did release on FlatHub and on their own project that they've been working on, and that is called GeForce Infinity. And this is simply, it is an Electron browser-based GeForce Now application, but it does try to improve the experience for the user. So if you are someone that wants to use GeForce Now on Linux desktop, I would say this is probably the best one to choose right now. There is another one that you can find. If I do search up GeForce Now, there's this one here, which is an unenforced GeForce Now application written in Electron, but I would say I would test out the GeForce Infinity one. It's also verified on FlatHub, so it's a bit more, just safer, I would say, when it comes to installing the application. And as it says here, it offers native-like performance, a modern SteamOS-like sidebar for controlling GeForce Infinity by just doing Control-I. It has Discord rich presence as well if you want that, autofocus when gaming rig is ready, notifications when gaming rig is ready, ability to change user agent if having issues with defaults, ability to change theme colors of GeForce Now, ability to reload GeForce Now without restarting the application. So some nice features if you are looking for that. And if you are someone that owns the Acer Nitro gaming controller NGR200, it is also going to be supported in the Linux kernel 6.16 as an Xbox 360 style gaming controller for Windows and Android gaming, and with 6.16 and potentially for backporting to prior kernel versions is mainline kernel support. The Acer Nitro gaming controller NGR200 retails for just about $35 USD or even as low as $25 USD from Amazon.com. So as you can see, this is what the controller looks like. Seems like a pretty alright controller, I would say. And it does add it through the XPad input driver. Also, if you are a fan of the 8BitDo like SN30 Pro type controllers, how they have that type of like PlayStation controller layout, but they look like, something from the 80s or 90s. Well, the 8BitDo Pro 3 controller did get announced, and this is a very nice iteration basically of this controller, which is the Pro Plus, to the, I think it was the Pro 2 and now the Pro 3. And this kind of evolves it in, I would say, a really good way, which, first of all, really nice color selections, but also being able to swap the thumbsticks and the ABXY buttons on the fly, and they're magnetic. Pretty damn cool, I would say. When it comes to, is it going to work on Linux? It does say that it does support Steam Deck or SteamOS, but it doesn't say, of course, for some reason, 8BitDo never says that they support Linux. They always say we support SteamOS and maybe Raspberry Pi. So I would say that it's going to work within the SteamOS mode or just through Steam, but it may or may not work when it comes to outside of Steam. If you want to use like Lutris or Heroic or something to play your games, it may have issues, but most likely, just to give a bit of hope, it's probably going to work. I would assume so, but maybe not. If anyone does own a 8BitDo Pro 3 controller, if they're out yet, definitely comment down below if it does work on Linux or not. Then when it comes to handheld devices, this handheld that we are looking at right now, the Orange Pi Neo, has been around for quite a while. It was announced, I would say, like a year and a half ago, or maybe even longer before that, and it hasn't really gotten off its feet yet when it comes to its prices or when it's releasing, but there was an announcement from one of the lead Manjaro developers who said the prices, which is around 450 USD for a model that has the 7840U, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage, is 450 USD. And then the higher end model, the 8840U, 32 gigabytes of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage, will be 550 USD. So as someone said, the price did go down when it came to it, so I'm guessing the pricing it had before was a bit more expensive, but I guess since this handheld has been out for quite a while now, the price would have to come down to, for what handhelds are priced today with what tech they have inside, so you would have to make it cheaper. But if you don't know, the Orange Pi Neo is a partnership with Orange Pi, which I'm pretty sure is some Asian-based company that creates different types of open source technology, I think. And then Manjaro, which, as you know, is a Linux distro, and they decided to partner up to include Manjaro with its own SteamOS gaming mode on a handheld. And as you can see, it does look pretty nice. And the cool thing I like about this is that it includes 2 trackpads, which is something that should be included by default on handhelds, I would say. So I'm really excited to see this handheld release and just see how it goes when it comes to what issues appear, how good the software support is out of the box, all those types of things. And if you are someone that really likes to play Lost Ark, but when you moved over to Linux, you know, you couldn't play it because, well, it was blocked, and it's been blocked for quite a while. But if you don't know, it's now playable. The anti-cheat that they use, which I'm pretty sure is just like easy anti-cheat, it had been disabled when it came to Proton support, and it does seem like they have changed that, and it's also been quite a while since they changed it. So I don't know when this happened. There was no, I don't think there was any announcement of enabling it, but it has been around 2 weeks or so from some reports that it's been enabled, and it hasn't been disabled yet. So we can kind of see, even with the deck verified status, that it's marked as playable. That means Valve has looked at this game and gone, okay, it's playable, and marked it as playable. So if you do be wanting to play this game, you can now play it. And the last one, I guess you could say, is the GE Proton release that did happen actually did add a workaround to getting Wuthering Waves playable on Linux desktop, which I already made a video about Wuthering Waves, which you can go watch how to set that up. It's really easy to do, I would say. And that is the end of this month in Linux gaming. If I did miss anything, comment down below. I would really love to know what you've seen with Linux gaming that has gotten you really excited. If you guys indeed enjoy watching this video, definitely give it a like, definitely subscribe to the channel, and thank you to my supporters. I'll show a text across the screen of everyone on that list. Thank you, money, every single day a month. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.